Well, welcome back to Houston Newsmakers and to Lalu Davis Yematan, who by day is a realtor and entrepreneur and now is adding a podcast with a purpose called My Brother Podcast. Good morning, Lalu. Good to see you.
It's a pleasure, Cambrell. Thanks for having me on.
What is the purpose behind this? What was the spark that made you want to do this?
You know, in recent times, when we've looked at the challenges that we've been dealing with that have sort of crescendoed in more recent times with police brutality and just the seemingly disregard for Black men and what Black men represent, I had made the observation that too often the portrayals of Black men that were consistently perpetuated were the negative stereotypes. And whenever we are highlighted in a positive manner, it tends to be with those who are either athletes, artists, or entertainers. Mm-hmm. And the impetus behind this is that we are so much more than that. We are everyman. We're bankers, we're lawyers, we're doctors, we're scientists, we're judges, we're entrepreneurs, we're politicians, we're military officers. And so I felt that it was critical that people needed to understand that there's so many brothers out there who are being positive, who are living lives that are tremendous, they're achieving great things in their careers, and they could be a shining light that could hopefully help some young person see what's possible and what's achievable. And so it's in that spirit that I thought these stories needed to be told. And so the idea behind the podcast is to capture stories that highlight the lives from childhood all the way through the peak of their career journeys of Black men all over the country.
So with that in mind, you've already interviewed a few people at this point. You're going to be interviewing more. Who is your preferred audience? Who are the people that you really want to see this, and how do you want to get this out?
You know, my preferred audience is young Black men who are, from their teen years to mid-career professionals. We all have these challenges and struggles that we deal with, at various stages. So whether it's in high school trying to make a decision about college, or whether you're an early level career person trying to figure out what pathway do you need to walk, it helps when you can see what others have done and you can kind of model your journey after theirs. And more importantly, there's so many critical lessons that, some of the folks that I've interviewed have been able to share, especially, brothers who got into their career fields in the 70s. And you can imagine a lot of these guys were the first in so many of their fields. But beyond just young Black men, I think for young men across the board of every race, color, creed, and stripe, but it's essential because, Black males have been endangered, and we're at this critical moment that, brothers like myself, like yourself, I feel like we have stories to tell, and so my focus is on Black males.
You're just starting off here. What are some of your beginner issues that you're getting into? I mean, podcasting is not something that is in your wheelhouse, but you're kicking it off anyway. I've never known you to be shy about stuff, so this is a classic example of that. What kind of beginner issues have you run into, and how are you getting through those?
Yeah, so, a lot of the beginner issues I actually was able to overcome. My wife ran an election in the fall of 2019. So a lot of the digital and graphic things that I needed to learn to do, I learned by being her campaign manager. But beyond that, it's just really been, learning how to schedule people, how to also interview. I mean, it's sort of a new thing for me, and you do such an excellent job of that. And I should watch more of Newsmakers week after week to make sure I'm fine-tuning my skill. But I think it's really understanding how to ask the question and how to draw and elicit those responses that I think are going to be meaningful for our audience. But beyond that, it's just been a tremendous experience so far, and incredible stories have been garnered.
So you mentioned your wife's name. You want to throw a name out there just so you know?
Yes, Dr. Reagan Flowers, who now has the pleasure and privilege of serving on the Houston Community College Board of Trustees.
Okay, so you were successful in your role then. That's the good point there. Behind every successful woman, there's a successful man, right?
Hear, hear.
So now going forward, what stands out? Is there a common denominator kind of theme that stood out from among the people you've talked to up to now?
Yeah, so it's been rather interesting. Of the first, 10 or so interviewees, 8 out of those individuals, and I wasn't tracking this, it just happened to be that way, about 80% of them actually grew up in a stable household, what you might consider two-parent households. And so many repeatedly, my father was this way, my mother was this way. So I think the family structure and unit of support has been essential. I mean, there's some standout guys. I interviewed the current Washington, D.C. medical examiner. Phenomenal story. He started out in a two-parent household, but his father went wayward and they've reconnected, which has been a tremendous story. But I found that there's a common thread of these are people who are just adamant and persistent. They're determined to succeed rather. And quite frankly, a lot of them are just, academically inclined. I mean, that's another common thread that I found is that you have people who have sort of this natural motivation and inclination. Another highlight has been a number of them have found someone or some incident that motivated them along the way, that made them say, hey, look, I want to be that guy. And I think it's emblematic of what we're trying to do here precisely is having those young brothers look and say, hey, you know what? I want to be Cambrell, who's had this long career in TV and has been able to, transform even his own career, going from being sort of your standard anchor to becoming a meteorologist and then running a community show. So I think
it's not about me. It's not about me, Lalu. It's not about me. So where can people find your podcast and when is it going to be kicking off?
Yeah, so we plan to launch it. It's going to be launched, here shortly. So starting July 13th, you'll be able to find it on mybrotherpodcast.com. It's pretty simple. We're also on the Google platform, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. So,
good deal.
And also we have a YouTube channel. So if you just search for My Brother Podcast on YouTube or any of those platforms, you'll be able to readily access us.
All right. I'll put the link on our Newsmakers page on clicktohouston.com as well. Lalu, thank you. Good luck going forward.
Thank you, my brother.